And welcome to this April 8th, 2024 meeting of the Lake Bluff Village Board of Trustees. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Cole?
Here.
Trustee Fisher?
Here.
Trustee Freed?
Here.
Trustee Hatch?
Here.
And Trustee Rappin?
Here.
Trustee Ryder is absent.
Thank you. Please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on our agenda are three awards and proclamation. And first would be a proclamation designating April 2024 Fair Housing Month. Whereas April 2024 marks the 56th anniversary of the passage of the U.S. Fair Housing Law, Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, as amended, which enunciates a national policy of fair housing without regard to race, color, religion, sex, familial status, handicap, and national origin, and encourages fair housing opportunities for all citizens. And whereas individuals in the state of Illinois are guaranteed the right to choose where to live without discrimination based on race, color, religion, age, sex, including sexual harassment and pregnancy, familial status, marital status, national origin and ancestry, disability, sexual orientation, gender identity, military status, unfavorable military discharge, and order of protection status. And whereas acts of housing discrimination and barrier to equal housing opportunity are repugnant to a common sense of decency and fairness. And whereas the Village of Lake Bluff welcomes the opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to the principle of fair housing for all, is committed to all efforts that address discrimination in our communities, supports all programs that will educate the public concerning their right to equal housing opportunity, and assures every person their right to live free of a fear of housing discrimination. So now, therefore, I, Régis Charlot, Village President of the Village of Lake Bluff, Illinois, do hereby proclaim April 2024 Fair Housing Month in the Village of Lake Bluff and call upon the people of Lake Bluff to wholeheartedly recognize the importance of fair housing to our village and nation, and the progress we have made in ensuring equal and equitable housing for all people. Thank you. Next would be a proclamation declaring April 26, 2024 Arbor Day. Whereas Arbor Day will be officially observed in the state of Illinois on Friday, April 26, 2024, by proclamation of a governor, and the planting of trees on Arbor Day is a tradition through the state and the Village of Lake Bluff. And whereas the Village of Lake Bluff has been recognized as Tree City USA for the past 28 years by the National Arbor Day Foundation. And this is a thing we should be very proud of, by the way. And whereas trees in our village, wherever they are planted, increase property values, enhance our business and residential areas, beautify our community, and are a source of joy and promote the environmental well-being of present and future generations. And whereas Lake Bluff Garden Club, Lake Bluff Open Lands, Lake Bluff School District, Lake Bluff Park District, and other private and public institutions have actively supported preservation efforts and the renewal of natural areas through tree planting and landscape projects. And whereas the celebration of Arbor Day 2024 in Lake Bluff will be observed on Thursday, April 25th at 10:30 a.m. through the day in programs and schools, and in particular in the planting of a tree at the Lake Bluff Recreation Center. Now therefore, be it resolved that I, Régis Charlot, Village President of the Village of Lake Bluff, Illinois, proclaim Friday, April 26, 2024 as Arbor Day in the Village of Lake Bluff, and I urge all citizens to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands, to plant trees in this day, and to join in the celebration ceremony with the Lake Bluff Garden Club and Lake Bluff Open Lands. So thank you. And I would like also to thank the staff of Lake Bluff, especially Jake, for you guys really caring for our trees, and I see you guys doing that all the time, so thank you. It's necessary and it's justified. Thank you. And last, as a proclamation, would be a proclamation designating April 7 to April 13, 2024 as National Library Week. Whereas libraries offer the opportunity for everyone to connect with others, learn new skills, and pursue their passions, no matter where they are on life's journey. And whereas libraries have long served as trusted institutions, striving to ensure equitable access to information and services for all members of a community, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientations, gender identity, or social economic status. And whereas libraries adapt to the ever-changing need of their communities, developing and expanding collections, programs, and services that are as diverse as the population they serve. And whereas libraries are accessible and inclusive places that promote a sense of local connection, advancing understanding, civic engagement, and shared community goals. And whereas libraries play a pivotal role in economic development by providing resources and support for job seekers, entrepreneurs, and small businesses, thus contributing to local prosperity and growth. And whereas libraries are treasured institutions that preserve our collective heritage and knowledge, safeguarding both physical and digital resources for present and future generations. And whereas libraries are an essential public good and fundamental institution in democratic societies, working to improve society, protect the right to education and literacy, and promote the free exchange of information and ideas for all. And whereas the Lake Bluff Library has been a cherished local institution for many decades, and it is recognized as an important and significantly contributing member of the Lake Bluff Central Business District community, continues to be an enthusiastic supporter of numerous special events throughout town, and actively promote literacy, reading, health, exercise, and movements in Lake Bluff through the Lake Bluff Library Story Walk and its many other programs. And whereas libraries, librarians, and library workers are joining library supporters and advocates across the nation to celebrate National Library Week. Now therefore, I, Régis Charlot, Village President of the Village of Lake Bluff, Illinois, do hereby proclaim the week of April 7 to 13, 2024 as National Library Week, and encourage all residents to visit their library and to celebrate the adventures and opportunities they unlock for us every day. So thank you. Would you like to say a word? Can you please introduce yourself and your address?
Yes. Good evening, Village Board. My name is Renee Grassi. I am the Library Director at the Lake Bluff Public Library. I'm a resident of Vernon Hills.
My name is Sandy Jardine. I'm on the Lake Bluff Library Board of Trustees, and we want to thank you so much for this recognition. It's wonderful. Thank you.
I just want to extend again our appreciation for the village board support, both financial and otherwise. I am so proud to be director of a library that has such community connection. Just today, we had a line of community members outside our building ready to pick up Eclipse classes. I think what's great about public libraries is we are a connector and a catalyst for community connection. We offer resources and provide access to a community, and I couldn't be more proud to serve the library board and the community of Lake Bluff. And I will be sure to pass along this proclamation to our library board at our meeting on April 16th. And I will also be sure to let our staff know how appreciated their efforts are in their community service. So thank you for your community service and for your support of the Lake Bluff Library. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Renee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Next would be item 4, the consideration of March 11, 2024 regular village board meetings. Is there a motion to approve the March 11 minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Are there any changes? Thank you. Mrs. Clerk, please call the roll. Voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. Next is our non-agenda items and visitors. The village president and board of trustees allocates 15 minutes during this item for those individuals who would like the opportunity to address the village board of trustees on any matter not listed on the agenda. Each person addressing the village board of trustees is asked to limit their comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. And I do not see anybody in the room. What about online?
Recording in progress.
I don't know why that was not playing. There is one person participating on the Zoom call. I'm fairly certain that that person is here for item 15.
Okay. There's no sign online.
There's no indication that they want to comment at this time.
All right, so I say move forward.
Yep.
Next item would be our village board sets the order of a meeting. The village president and board of trustees will entertain requests from anyone present on the order of business to be conducted during the village board meeting. I know we have John here, John Desrosiers, so we could put your item first. What else do we have?
Well, I mean, it depends on maybe a motion that's going to be made.
I'll make that later.
Right.
Yeah, when we get down. When we get down.
Yeah. So I think there's no reason to change the agenda at this moment.
Okay, all right. So no, moving forward. We have item 7, that would be our village finance report, and that would be the warrants report for March 12 to April 8, 2024, and February 2024 payroll expenditures. Is there a motion to approve the warrants report?
So moved.
Thank you. And as a summary of background and reason for request, we have expenditure of village funds for payment of invoices in the amount of $221,581.12 for March 12 to March 15, 2024. We have expenditure of village funds for payments of invoices in the amount of $302,300.39 for March 26 to April 8, 2024. And last, we have expenditure of village funds for payment of payroll in the amount of $297,727.46 for February 2024, for total expenditures of $821,608.97. Do we have questions on the board? I'm happy to notice we found a car for a new reading the ledger. So I'm happy you found a car for as a cruiser.
50% there, right? One more to go. One more to go, right? Two more to go, sorry.
2 more to go. I also noticed that we have a payment for the bridge going on, so we're doing well.
Progress payment, yes.
Exactly. Anything else? Any comments? All right. I believe this is a roll call. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Cole,
Aye.
trustee Fisher,
Aye.
trustee Freed,
Aye.
trustee Hatch,
Aye.
and trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next would be our February 2024 financial reports. Is there a motion to approve the finance report?
So moved. Seconded.
Thank you. Bettina, would you mind walking us through this report?
Sure. Good evening. The monthly sales tax revenue on a cash basis for February 2024 is $322,176, which is $11,305 or 3.6% greater than the FY23 cash basis receipts for the same period. General fund fiscal '24 total revenues of $11,491,579 are $167,967 less than the fiscal year '23 revenues to date. I've one-time fiscal year '23 ARPA funds were removed or excluded from the calculation. The total revenues would reflect an increase of $210,600 or 1.9%. Fiscal year '24 current expenditures are consistent with or less than budgeted for the total general fund, and the fiscal year-to-date expenditures of $11,255,743 are $1,439,311 greater than the expenditures for the same period in FY '23. Now, this is primarily attributed to the increased interfund transfers to the capital fund of $500,000 and the additional $55,000 Social Security fund deposit. The public safety roof replacement of approximately $500,000, and the police CBA retroactive salary increases.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any question to Bettina? Thank you, Bettina. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. Next would be our village administrator's report.
I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Followed by our village attorney's report.
No report.
Thank you. Followed by my report. And the only thing I would like to mention tonight, talking about strategic plans and community building, is Lake Bluff baseball kickoff is this Saturday. Ceremonies will start at Rosenthal Field at 9 a.m. And before that, there will be a pancake breakfast at the firehouse from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. And I only say that because my kids were part of that, and it was an amazing event where the whole village is there. Talk about communities, okay? It's an amazing event. This is American Anatomy being born somewhere else. So be there. This is fun.
A great tradition, and no snow tomorrow, because occasionally it does snow on that day.
Sad but true. Aren't you catching the opening pitch?
Unfortunately, yes.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
No, it's very cute. It's fun. I grew up baseball and soccer. Handball, so I'm fine with that. But it's fun. It's
See.
it's growing up to be part of this community. This is important.
Yes.
So thank you. Next would be our consent agenda.
So I would like to make a motion to amend the consent agenda to include all of the items in other business, items 14 through 25, with the exception of items 14, which is related to Center Venue Partners, with the exception of item 18, which is a public hearing, and with the exception of item number 21, which relates to the Flock Group. The rest of the items are all either ordinances or resolutions that have either been approved by committees unanimously or are items we typically approve without any commentary.
Second.
This is a roll call, or this is a...
Voice vote,
It's a voice vote.
if there's any discussion, otherwise voice vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion carries. Thank you. So I will proceed with my declaration for the consent agenda. That would be, is there a request to remove any of these items from the consent agenda, including item 11, 12, and 13? Or is there a motion to approve the consent agenda
As amended.
as amended?
So moved. Second.
I'm sorry, who's that? Was that? Thank you.
Is there any discussion? So it is a roll call. Please call the roll. Clerk?
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Freed?
Aye.
Trustee Hatch? Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
And Trustee Cole?
Aye.
Thank you. And the motion carries.
I'm sorry, just to be clear, we will, before I have to rescind my aye, we will keep items 14, 18, and 21 on
The-
other business.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Okay.
And to point out, just for Mr. DeRossier, who's here, 14, the board is aware that you're looking to have that item considered tonight, both first and second reading of that. So,
And next on our agenda would be item 14. That would be an ordinance amending the special use permits for the Center Avenue Partners development to allow additional flexibility in use of restaurant spaces located at 28 to 38 East Center Avenue and 53 to 91 East Scranton Avenue. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. John Desrosiers of Innovacy Restaurants LLC met with village staff to discuss potential changes to the special use permit governing 28 to 38 East Center Avenue and 53 to 91 East Scranton Avenue. The subject property currently contains the following restaurants: Innovacy, The Other Door, JDR Wine and Beer, and Half and Half Pizza Co. Mr. Desrosiers is now looking to combine his JDR Wine and Beer and Half Pizza Co. concepts and open a new casual Italian restaurant in the existing JDR Wine and Beer space within Innovacy. These changes would require an amendment to the subject property's special use permit, which has been amended approximately 8 times since it was approved in 2004. On February 9, 2024, the village received a special use permit amendment application from Innovacy Restaurants requesting greater flexibility so that restaurants' concepts can easily adapt over time due to market changes. As you may recall, the village recently passed ordinances that 1. Grandfather existing CBD structures so that most changes in use will not trigger new parking requirements. 2. Establish standard hours of operations for CBD restaurants. The proposed amendment would allow any changes, including any new restaurant concept with or without an accessory drinking place, to be approved by the village administrator instead of a village board. The ordinance also removes the location and size requirements related to the accessory liquor retail area so that it could be located anywhere within the applicant's restaurants. On March 9, 2024, the PCCBA held a public hearing regarding the request and unanimously voted 7-0 to forward the favorable recommendation to the village boards. Monsieur Desrosiers is requesting approval of both first and second reading tonight. Could you please state your name?
Sure.
for the record?
John DeRosier, the owner and operator of all the restaurants over here in town, Innovazi, Other Door, Half and Half, whatever we decide to come up with next week. So the basic idea is just to give us flexibility that within the same framework we have now to create different things and move them around. Specifically, the idea came from us wanting to move JDR to a space that had some seating. Obviously, the wine shop is small. There's no room for any sort of tables or tasting inside of it. The shop's done really great. It's been a really great addition, I think, both to the community, but also to us financially. It's done better than we ever thought. One of the good things that came out of COVID, for sure, was our little wine shop. But we want to be able to do tastings with people, small wine dinners, things like that. We also want to bring back something that Wisma did before, which is to sell wine by the glass at a retail price instead of a normal restaurant price. So this will give us the opportunity to do that, which means we'll have, you know, beer for $3 and wine by the glass for $5 to $10 instead of from 10 to 30. So it'll be a different price point, a place for people to go and relax and hang out all day long. There'll be a menu we have just for over there. You can eat, drink, have parties, have meetings, you know, all those different kinds of things. So the impetus for all this was that change, which then made our overall space that served alcohol to be a few percentage points higher than what is allowed in the current existing structure. I think it's 15% for alcohol right now, and this is going to be like 20%. So that one thing is what triggered another change and another reason for us to go through this whole process. We're just trying to find a way for me not to have to come here and see you guys for this reason, you know, 7 times in our 15-year history. So basically it just gives us the idea that we can move things around and try things, and if they don't work, we can change it and do something else with it. So that's really the whole idea. The other place we're going to add where the wine shop is really kind of a micro restaurant. It's going to be a cool little small plate Italian place named after my daughter's middle name. So we'll see. That'll be something that's kind of neat and unique. We've never really tried something on that small of a scale before. So we'll borrow some of the infrastructure from Innovazi, but create a different environment that's at a different price point and a different theme than the surrounding restaurant is. So
I've always thought an Italian restaurant in the Bluff would be awesome. It's a missing thing for the past 20 years.
And it won't be too weird, I promise. Everybody will understand all the words on the menu. I know that's often a criticism from Innovazi, so.
Thank you, John.
But that's the idea.
Any question to John?
I think I just want to understand exactly what the ask is. So the ask is that for your group, you will be able to ask or kind of skip this process and have the administrator approve as long as it's within the space that you are currently occupying?
Yeah, and this is actually staff encouraged Mr. DeRossi to pursue this. We internally call this the Italy ordinance, right? The idea that if you've been to Italy, that all those different levels and activities are different.
Kiosk type,
Yes, and within that, and I think the village tried to achieve something close to that, the last amendment to the special use permit, but we couldn't predict exactly what the future would like.
Yeah, my idea screwed it up again. So.
But the idea is the village, in an attempt to be pro-business and also to realize from a regulatory standpoint, the village has updated its parking regulations as it relates to the CBD as well as the hours of operation. Those are the two critical, use measures or intensity of use issues that concerns the village. And since it's already like those sales have been pointed in the direction that the village wants to go in, there really wasn't much more to talk about. And so that was really at the PCZBA, they concurred. It's like, yeah, we've already decided what the hours of operation are for everybody in the CBD. The parking issue, we also realized we can't, get water from a stone. The idea that there's only so much parking.
Right.
But from procedure is that this is not without any bookends, and that the village's liquor regulations still apply, and that which limits how much of a bar can he have. He still has that rail. In addition, that it is not, he doesn't have carte blanche. He still has to go through an administrative process and any other building,
Right,
building
if there were
regulation.
build-out permit questions. but-
And nothing, if John came forward with some idea that was maybe, I thought, this is pushing the envelope, nothing precluded, and I made this comment at the PCZB, nothing precluded me from bringing that to the PCZB or the village board and saying, before I approve this, let's have some feedback on it, because I think this may be beyond the realm of what we contemplated when this came forward.
So I have two questions about that, because that is sort of my concern is it feels a little arbitrary what receives public transparency and what doesn't. But two things. One, if the wine shop is now going to be an eatery of some sort.
Wisma-like.
Right, but wouldn't that potentially change or impact parking? Because whereas people were stopping by after work to grab a bottle and go, now they're sitting down and spending time.
Well, it's an eatery now. The space it's going into to combine with half and half is already an eatery now. And
But it would expand?
no, it's the same size.
Okay.
We're gonna combine the two. The number of seats that all the restaurants, all the different concepts share together is not increasing.
Okay,
So the number of seats outside and inside will stay the same that they are now.
gotcha.
So that we won't have any more capacity. Our idea is not capacity, it's to move our capacity around.
Shifting where the
Yes.
seating is.
And theoretically, if people are there all day, it would have people there longer, but that doesn't sound material.
Right,
And that question came up at the PCZBA, and also that this is really only within the walls, not necessarily in counting the outdoor cafe spaces, but those are maxed out in terms of what he can put there as well.
right.
Yeah.
So but the other question I do have is, you mentioned, John, that there is an increase as far as, you said 15 to 20% when it comes to alcohol sales.
Of our total current rented space, yeah. We're right at about 15% right now. This will change that to 20%.
What is that metric, the 15 and the 20, what's it measuring?
The percentage of the percentage of square footage where there is a bar or alcohol sales store of our entire space.
Okay, not where patrons are
Yeah, because
imbibing.
100% of it is where patrons consume alcohol.
Got it.
For whatever reason, when the original rules were written 20 years ago, they limited the actual physical bar space to a certain percentage of the square footage, and it could not go beyond that point. So we're still kind of dealing with the reflection from that. I mean, our space was the first liquor license the village granted. So back then, it was, a dry village, and everybody said, you can't have a bar that's too big, people will drink too much.
Yeah. So this is like an extra 3 feet of bar space.
Yeah, as a combined square footage, it's really small. There isn't really that much more. Also, the current space is already covered by a BYOB license, so people bring in wine and beer to go there now anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty small difference from what actually physically happens day to day in the restaurants now.
Any more questions to John?
If you give me one more, I just want to clarify what his current license spells out. I think it's a C, isn't it? Claire, do you recall if it's a Class C?
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah,
It's combined retail and,
yeah. The Class C license.
we've actually had that since we opened.
Authorizes the retail sale, no, I'm sorry, that's the wrong class, sorry. That's definitely not it, sorry. Here it is. It's Class AC, Apple cherry here. It says, which shall authorize the retail sale and service by restaurants of alcoholic liquor for consumption on the premises incidental and complementary to the sale and service of a complete meal served and eaten at a table within the restaurant's dining area and within an outdoor service area approved by the village. Also of alcoholic liquor for consumption on the premises with or without the sale or service of a meal in a single bar service area where both the bar service area does not exceed 10% of the total square footage of the restaurant to which it is accessory, and 2, the only public access to the bar service area is through the restaurant to which it is accessory. Also of alcoholic liquor in the original package not for consumption on the premises where sold, and limited alcoholic liquor tasting activities as provided in this chapter, and also of beer and wine by delivery. So that was a license that was created for his operation, and that limit was in place. He also has the BYOB license.
And just a note with that, since this is now being treated as, instead of half and half having its own liquor license and Innovasi having its own liquor license, the entirety of the restaurants are the bar area would be less than 10% now. So that is just a slight clarification and where that difference comes from.
The numerator and denominator change, right? The numerator and denominator. So we looked at that and we said this new layout, as he's currently designed, would still be within his current limitations through the liquor license. So that's still like the backstop that stays in place.
Okay.
But just as a reminder too, WISMA was under the zoning code a food store. Because that's the way it predominantly functioned.
Yeah.
It did have a certain number of tables. We said like it was a third of the space was not dedicated to on-site consumption. And so, yeah.
Any more questions on the board now that we have satisfied this point?
Nope.
No? It is a roll call.
This is first reading.
It's a voice vote. It's a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate
And
it.
to be clear, we're waiving second reading.
That's what the request is.
So
That
do
has
we
not
need
happened.
to-
Do we need a motion?
Yes.
Motion to waive second.
Second.
And now that will be a roll call.
We need a second.
Second.
I seconded.
Second. So it is a roll call. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Freed,
Aye.
Trustee Hatch.
Aye.
Trustee Rappin,
Aye.
Trustee Cole,
Aye.
and Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now this time, John, good luck.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item would be item 18. I lost my mark. Item 18, that would be a public hearing concerning the Village of Lake Bluff proposed fiscal year 2025 to 2026 biennial budget. As required by law, the village must hold a public hearing on the fiscal year 2025-2026 tentative biennial budget, the budget, after which the fiscal plan may be revised or passed without any further inspection, notice, or hearing. Consistent with past practice, first reading of a budget ordinance will follow this public hearing, with second reading and adoption of a budget anticipated at the April 22nd Village Board meeting. Notice of his hearing was published in the Lake County News Sun on March 27, 2024. Our finance director will present a summary report of a budget and is available to respond to questions at the hearing. And as such, I declare a public hearing open regarding our year 2024-25 property tax levy. Finance Director Acano.
Good evening. This public hearing is for the village's biennial budget for the fiscal period beginning May 1, 24 and ending April 30th, 26. The 2023 strategic plan includes the mission to provide stewardship, valued services, while fostering the community, enhancing quality of life. These fundamentals are directly correlated to the planning and commitment of resources in the budget. The village's organizational goals are also the basis of the budget, focusing on fiscal responsibility through sense of community, through quality service delivery, economic development by infrastructure investing, stability with planning and long-range reviewing, environmental sensibility utilizing program management, and public assets maintaining and improving infrastructure. The Village of Lake Bluff has used a biennial budgeting process continuously since FY 2017 and is one of the only small number of Illinois municipalities who use this method. This approach to budgeting strengthens the village's long-range planning and promotes effective program management. While statute requires that the budget continue to be adopted annually, the first year's budget and financial plan forms the basis for the second year for the second year plan with modifications. Unexpended operating budgets from the first year may be carried over into the second year with the approval of the village board. The resulting plan documents includes and authorizes 2 years of operating budgets, a 2-year capital improvement plan, and identifies financial trends and information for future years to support the village's financial plan. The budget is organized by funds, which allow for the allocation of resources. Not all activities of local governments have the same financial objectives. The various funds in the budget account for activities with different objectives. The general fund focusing on department expenditures and revenues. Special revenues, these funds are used to account for and report proceeds for specific sources that are either restricted or committed for expenditures for specific purposes other than debt or capital. This could include foreign fire tax, IMRF, Social Security, motor fuel, and 911. The capital is the capital projects fund. Debt is to account for bond debt. And then water and stormwater is related to the business enterprise funds associated with the utilities. Police pension is a trust fund to separately account for the police pension revenues and expenditures. And the library is considered a component unit and has their own fund within our budget. So this is a historical snapshot of budgeted revenues versus operating expenditures. The operating budget for all costs except capital and contingency for the village and the library is $14.13 million for FY25, representing a 3.16 increase when compared to FY24. The increase is largely as a result of the new collective bargaining contracts, and the FY26 operating costs are relatively consistent with a 3.7% increase. Historically, village revenue sources are generally stable except for grant revenue, and the total overall reduction in fund balance can be attributed to capital project expenses. The village continues to balance available resources with the cost of providing appropriate services, and this chart represents a historical look back at the swings in revenue, specifically property tax, the blue part of the graph, sales tax being the orange, home rule the gray, and state income tax the yellow. Some assumptions that are used: property tax is increased with CPI anticipated increases. Sales tax assumptions are budgeted to match trends, and other taxes are market or weather driven, and those assumptions adjust through the budget cycle. So some highlights to review for the general fund projected revenues. This summarizes property taxes, lists out other taxes, and summarizes license, permits, charges for services, fines and forfeitures, miscellaneous, and total, and gives you the total revenues. The property tax revenue reflects increases, as I said, for CPI or inflation. Sales tax revenue projections are conservatively estimated to return to pre-COVID levels and account for pending state legislature reducing the grocery tax revenues. State shared income tax receipts have benefited from improving labor markets, and higher than estimated tax receipts and payments are projected to be at 165.16 per capita. The state income tax receipts account for 4.18% of all revenues for the village of Lake Bluff. So this gives you an overall snapshot of the revenues and the percentages that they make up for the total. That being property taxes, the highest at 30%, and all the way down to some of the lower ones being sewer and building permits and grant revenue. From a financial plan perspective, the village's economic outlook remains strong in the face of some of the recent economic challenges. FY25 and 26 budget is cautiously optimistic, but cognizant and sensitive to the challenges of the past fiscal years. This historical comparison to the budget shows the stability of property tax revenues, the sales and home rule tax budgeted declines of FY21 and 22, and the stabilization of sales tax revenues thereafter.
Not to catch you off guard,
That's okay.
but the communication we received last week from Moody's, would you like to share that with the board?
Oh, share the Moody. So Moody's gave us an update. It was not a full review, but they did give us an update and kept the AAA bond rating.
Really nice.
So this shows the property tax allocation. You might be familiar from the tax levy presentation, but from a tax bill perspective, the village balances taxes, user fees, and revenue sources, and the village portion of the tax bill is approximately 9.04%. This distribution of 2023 property taxes will be collected in the budget year 2025. So this slide displays general fund balances for FY15 all the way to 23 with projections for 25 and 26. In addition to department expenses, general fund balances have been affected by transfers to the vehicle replacement fund and capital fund transfers that were board approved, and also general fund projects. So this chart does not include the library and represents the village funds excluding interfund transfers. It gives you a snapshot of operating budget, which includes personnel costs, contracts, commodities, debt payments, and pension costs. The total budgets are dark blue, and the operating budgets are light blue. The library's long-range plan is under development and to chart a course through the significant ongoing changes experienced by today's public libraries. Both the roof and the main building and the annex were replaced, and these one-time additional capital costs used reserve. Additional repairs and ADA building modifications are planned. Staff and the Board of Trustees for the library remain committed to providing safe, accessible, and welcoming facilities. So the fiscal year 25 expenditures remain about the same overall in percent from prior year. Total village capital expenditure budget for fiscal year 25 is $2.7 million, which represents 24% of the total budget. For fiscal year in fiscal year 26, it's $4.5 million, which represents 25% of the total budget. So this chart illustrates the changes in budgeted capital expenditures from 2015 to 2016. And the big jump from 25 to 26, as you know, is related to grant money and projects associated with those grant dollars. So just a review of the capital improvement projects that were approved. They're related to road improvements and water improvements for this year. Number 24 and number 30 are grant funded, related to grant funding, as well as number 2, right, Drew? Yeah. So assuming that grant funding is fulfilled, then those projects will happen. Just a map to overlay where the location of some of those projects are. And then again, just the key to that map, outlining the numbers that match the areas. So I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank the board for your support during the budget process, and also an additional thank you to the Finance Committee for their direction and consideration. And lastly, thanks to departments for their work and collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Bettina.
You're welcome.
Thank you very
Sure.
much. Any question to Bettina? I know that was fast, but any questions to following this presentation?
Just to clarify, this was the budget that the Finance Committee recommended the board approve.
Yeah, I feel like we covered this pretty well in finance and approved it, and Tina did a great job. She knows her stuff.
Yep. Yeah, and the AAA rating from Moody's really, it's great. It really helps our community on a financial footing and being able to borrow money and be able to execute the things we do that you guys do for the community as a team. And this is very good. Thank you.
Right, you're welcome.
And I would say that there's a lot of work that's been going on that isn't necessarily reflected on these tables, namely stormwater planning. A lot of that is making a lot of good headway, but that's coming very soon, as is the Green Bay Road reconstruction and bridge reconstruction project, which is on the horizon very soon, which will be extremely disruptive. Can't say that enough. But it's coming very soon. So.
We have the option to keep this public hearing open until our next meeting, April 24, right?
That's typically the practice.
I would certainly entertain a motion to keep this public hearing open.
I'll make,
You can just do it without objection. It'll be withheld. It will be held open.
So without objection, I will keep that public hearing open. Thank you. Bettina, thank you.
You're welcome.
I believe we have, what is our next item, 19? We have 14, 18, and then
21.
21, thank you. Last would be item 21.
I think you still have to do the executive session minutes too. I think those were those included? I had 20.
They were not included.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were
So
not. You stopped
you still have to
before
get that one too.
After this.
After this, correct.
Okay. So item 21 is a resolution authorizing the purchase and a service agreement with Flock Group, Inc. for fixed license plate recognition and LPR camera system. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you so much. The police department recommends the purchase of a roadside license plate recognition camera system from Flock Group Inc., Flock, also known as Flock, to capture license plate vehicle data of inbound vehicles entering the primary residential area of a village. These cameras will notify public safety personnel of potentially wanted vehicles when passing fixed LPR camera locations. Given the number of regional police agencies utilizing the same system, Lake Bluff Police will have the ability to search these and our own database, as well as share access data with other law enforcement agencies for bona fide law enforcement purpose only. Additionally, we expect private property owners will choose to install Flock cameras on their property and grant the village access as necessary. As you're well aware, there has been considerable discussion and debate regarding the village making use of this new technology to help public safety service providers in their efforts. In accordance with these discussions, the attached draft, general order, and agreement have been updated to reflect the most recent comments provided by the village board and the village attorney. More specifically, the attached agreement includes the village's preferred termination for convenience language and reflects the 14-day retainage period of the still images. If approved, the agreement will authorize the purchase of 8 solar-powered cameras to be installed at specified location for the 2-year contract period cost of $30,450 for the first year and $24,000 for the second year, for a total cost not to exceed $54,450. Any questions on the board?
I'll just reiterate, and I promise I will not spend the kind of time I've spent the last 2 times this has come up. I don't feel that 4.3 or 4.5 of the agreement has changed in any way that resolves or relieves my concern about the use of the data that is collected. And I will again say I am less concerned, although I appreciate the extra language that has been added and the modifications to the contract that have taken place. I am wholly uncomfortable and I still don't see the cost-benefit analysis that makes sense to give away community privacy as a government body. So I continue to be a no vote on this. I appreciate that no facial recognition. I feel like that's added, right? That wasn't in it before. But that was not, I mean, that is a concern, but the bigger concern for me is the identifying characteristics of the images captured. You don't need a face for that to be a useful identifying image. And 4.5 and 4.3 still continue to provide very general, wide sweeping access and use of these images. So I'll leave it at that. I don't think that Flock has made a good case to me to feel that this is a good use of our resources. I want to provide you, Chief, with all of the stuff to do your job. I think you do an amazing job, and I just can't get behind Flock.
So thank you for your comment, because it shows a concern for our community. I mean, we all show a concern in our community for what we're trying to achieve, and what you're saying is very much privately concerns that are absolutely justified, by the way. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. Any more comments on the board?
I too share concerns about Flock. I did have questions that I directed to Drew specifically about whether or not they had ever received subpoenas or not subpoena, I correct myself, a request from law enforcement or any other federal government body or state body to have real-time access to the cameras so they could use it in some sort of real-time practical measure, and the answer was no. That kind of alleviated some of the issues I had with access, and some of the new language does alleviate my other concerns. I still think that there are going to be issues with FOIA requests and the like, but I do think that my concerns have been alleviated.
Thank you. Any other comments on the board? Shayna?
Separately, I raised with Drew some recent articles written about Flock, including in Forbes magazine about conduct of, I think, salespeople, tactics, and permitting issues. And I think in talking that through, it seems like for example, the permitting issues that are highlighted in that article are probably not a concern for what we're doing here in our community. So that seems
And just
to
to
be
clarify,
covered.
that
Yeah.
the issue was, I think Flock was accused of mounting and installing equipment in state right-of-way without proper permit. I will tell you that doesn't surprise anybody with any state who's worked with states trying to get permits. It is very difficult and just a slow process. And I'm not saying it's right or the right way to do things, but I understand when you wait for permits for an exceptionally long time for something rather simple. So I wasn't, I think that was my reaction. It was like, it's not great, but it's not surprising at all. So
We also discussed placement of the cameras and the equipment and making sure that it doesn't sort of tarnish the landscape of our community, and that it's.
or go against the brand, right? The idea of being, you don't want to put it necessarily right by your welcome to town sign.
Yeah. You know, I'm in favor of moving forward, but I would like, if possible, to be able to understand maybe a year from now, how is it going? How is it being used? Is it in fact having an impact on our ability to address potential crime in Lake Bluff? Or have there been any uses of the images or information that are sort of out of scope of what we've contemplated in these discussions? I don't know if that's possible, but it seems like with our termination at will provisions, there should be a reason to maybe look at it in the future and understand whether it's working for us.
We can totally do that.
Yeah.
I like that recommendation, thank you. Mary or Steve, any comment?
I value all of the diverse opinions. I think I'm most aligned with Trustee Freed, that this is this is for the security of our community, and there are some flaws in this, but we have a 2-year time horizon, and we can always fire Flock if we want to. And I like the idea of revisiting it sometime in the near future.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Mary, any comment?
I think I've been more supportive of, or less skeptical of Flock from the get-go, not necessarily that. I appreciate all the concerns, and I think that everyone's done a good job of protecting the community's privacy and bringing up the concerns. I'm just more familiar with Flock from a work standpoint, because I do criminal law, so Flock isn't a new concept for me, and I do think that there's a good chance that Flock will be successful in helping alleviate any issues, like crime preventative issues, and I think it'll strike the balance. But I do also think that the board represents a healthy criticism and skepticism at first. I just have faith that it'll be worth it. So, thank you.
Thank you. I believe there are no more comments, correct? And we'll move forward with a roll call. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Hatch?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
Trustee Cole?
Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
No.
Trustee Freed?
Aye. Big surprise.
Thank you, guys. Matt, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so we will revisit this item in the
Yeah,
next
I
year.
think probably in a year. Yeah, right? Yeah. And we'll give you updates like when they're installed and let you know how things are rolling out.
Thank you. I think it is healthy to be cautious and to really revisit an issue that affects the privacy of our village. So thank you.
And just, I mean, I think we might expect legislation, some other further regulations coming down the pipeline, and certainly, I think, like every other tool in law enforcement, they're closely scrutinized and reevaluated pretty regularly.
I will just ask one question. I know we've already capped it, but will there be further discussion of location? Because I could anticipate some response potentially from community members.
We can certainly bring forward at least a location, a map at the next meeting where this is where we always anticipated they would go. If you have any comments on that, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we included that initially in the plan, but we can obviously bring that again if there's.
It's a good idea.
I think the goal is to be complementary with our neighbors to the south and maybe even the north. Yeah, where we're touching on all sides, so we're not redundant.
Yep.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you, Taryn. I do believe we do not have an executive session tonight.
Other than the minutes from the prior meeting, sir.
Okay. So our next item is item 27, a consideration of a March 11, 2024 executive session meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the session?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. This is a roll call. So voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. We have no executive session, and our next item is adjournment for this board. Could I please have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
And we're all in favor? No.
Aye.
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 No arguments.
We're adjourned at 8:04 PM.
Or adjourned. Thank you very much.
Yeah.